Good evening, everyone. This is Jeffrey Tucker with Liberty.me, and we've got a wonderful show tonight, very special. We've got our BitPay friends. We're going to talk about how to build a career in Bitcoin, which is going to involve a sort of inside look at BitPay and what goes on there and what it's like to actually work in a real-life Bitcoin business. Everybody I know wants to work at BitPay. So we have with us Jason Dreyzehner and also Rich Morgan. And I think I'll let you just introduce yourselves, just each of you one at a time. And Jason, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jason Dreyzehner. I lead the design team here at BitPay. I've been doing software engineering for a long time, and in recent years I've been doing a lot more design. I joined BitPay June 13th, 2013, so I've been here for almost 2 years. Things have been quite exciting since then. I saw the first boom, and now about a year of the recent market trend, so that's been very exciting. Rich, you want to?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I joined a few months after Jason in January of 2014, so I've been here a year and a half now. Been a software engineer for about 20 years. I lead the e-commerce and integrations team here at BitPay. So my background is primarily in more traditional forms of payment. So obviously I knew about Bitcoin, so when I had the opportunity to work for BitPay, I just jumped at the chance. I had to have the interview, and luckily, got the job. So that's my background.
Are you both from the South, or what about your where are you both of you from?
Yeah. Rich?
Go ahead. Yeah. I'm from the South. Yeah, I've lived all over, but from the South.
What was you? So you were in commercial banking and that sort of thing before, or what?
E-commerce.
Okay. Startup or big corporate stuff?
Both, really. I had my own consulting business for about 6-7 years. In that space, it's mostly small e-commerce type jobs. So.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jason?
Actually, pretty similar. I'm from southwestern Virginia. I was at the University of Virginia until very recently, until I came down to BitPay. I've been doing software for about 10 years now, actually.
Okay, so you worked at the University of Virginia?
No, I was a student for a year, and then I came straight down here, working on first BitPay's front end development, and now leading the design team.
I think most people, when they imagine working at a place like BitPay, they imagine, I don't know, like hundreds of programmers or something like that. But not everybody at BitPay is a programmer, or much less like a hacker, right? I mean, there's a huge allocation of tasks, right?
Yeah, we have. I believe we have around 40 engineers or kind of development people, and then we have now about 25 to 30 others. So we have, I think we have almost 70 in total. But yeah, we got a thorough mix. We've got James, who I know had set up a lot of this stuff, and marketing and small marketing team. Pretty extensive sales team now that's doing a lot of the enterprise sales, maybe 10 or 15. And then development teams here in the Atlanta headquarters.
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly like a regular, like any other regular business. We've got our accounting department and our CFO and, compliance team, legal, and yeah, but we do have a lot of engineers. That is true, though.
I think when I first visited the offices of BitPay, it was, oh, wow. I think it might have been in about, I think it was about April 2013. And I think there can't have been more than maybe 15 or 20 employees there. Am I right about that?
Yeah. I think maybe for the Bitcoin conference, was it around the time when you did the Bitcoin conference here?
No, this was would have been 6 months before that, because I came to an Atlanta Bitcoin meetup that you had sponsored. And I think it was in the same building. It was where the meetup took place.
Atlanta Tech Village.
Yeah, Atlanta Tech Village. So there's a big conference room there that could hold, I think, 400 or 500 people.
Yeah.
and so I kind of snuck out of that, and I kind of snuck out of that meeting and walked across the hall, and I saw the BitPay sign, and it was kind of exciting. And so, and somebody was in there, and they let me in and let me sort of tour around the offices, and it was really captivating. I mean, truly romantic, actually, I must say. It was really great.
You see the big lit up sign on the left when you walked in?
Yeah, I don't remember what did it say?
Oh, it was just the BitPay sign. It was our old logo.
Okay.
But when we switched logos, the custody of that sign was hotly debated.
Oh, is that right?
Tony Galippi, our chairman of the board, took it home. I think it's at his apartment now. But cool sign lit up in the back. It's a little neon lit up.
A little neon thing, yeah.
Cool, yeah. And that thing went all night, so you could see it from the windows outside the office. We're on the 5th floor there, so you could, if you were down on the street and you looked in just the right way, you'd be able to see the BitPay logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was.
Now it's on the building.
Well, it's actually remarkable to think of. So I think when I went to that Bitcoin meetup, the exchange rate was, I'm just gonna say maybe it was $30 or $40, something like that.
That's about right.
Yeah. So BitPay sort of grew up around the sort of the boom of Bitcoin, but you could also say I think that BitPay actually sort of led it in a way. I mean, one of you want to tell me sort of a little bit of the history of the company, because it was very early on. Tony and your current CEO, and I forget.
Stephen Pear. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of got together and put together the company long before anybody else had really much heard about Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they were lucky enough to hire one of the Bitcoin core engineers early on as well, and Jeff Garzik was an employee full time, and that was really cool. When we were at a little startup phase there in that Day TV building. Like Jeff sat like right behind me and stuff, and I was, I mean, things were just so cool. To field a small company back then was really neat, and now we're we moved next door into this bigger building, and I guess every business grows, and if it's successful, and yeah, I think that the strategic decisions that Tony and Stephen made by open sourcing all of our software pretty much, except for, there's a few core things they haven't open source, but giving our tools back to the community and then sponsoring the development of Bitcoin itself by hiring the core developer, that was a really smart move on their part. But they're really smart guys too, though. So.
Well, it is interesting, the decision to open source everything, and what that means is that everything, almost all of the software that you make available, that you use, is available on GitHub. And so you invite, the world Bitcoin community to examine the code and to even use it, right? I mean, that's kind of that's a daring sort of move, isn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, we want everyone to use our code because we believe in our code and we use it. And we also believe that we don't know everything, and there are bugs in code, and the more eyes we can have on it, the more bug-free the code will be. So, it's a group effort. We're all in this community, and so we all kind of depend on each other in that regard.
Yeah. And especially one thing that Stephen Pear, our CEO, clued me in on that I hadn't really realized before, something nice about open source software. Another thing, and especially for this audience, open source software can really help companies that are more innovative, and that it can really protect smaller companies from aggressive patents and aggressive lawsuits having to do with people patenting stuff that they're already using. Because if you release open source software, then it's pretty strong prior art. So it can really protect your business in a lot of ways.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I had not even considered until Stephen Pear mentioned that. One late night in that ATV office.
So it essentially protects
a lot of us.
It protects you against patent trolls.
Yep. That's really the genesis of a lot of our open source stuff, and I think we talk about that quite a bit also. But anything that might remotely get patent trolled, just put it up. It's not like anybody else is moving faster than we are.
So it causes it to be treated by the courts as what?
Prior art, so it can't be patented if it's public knowledge already. So the more we open source, the less other would-be patent trolls can prevent us from doing.
You know, that's a very interesting sort of analogy to copyright and publishing in the commons. It's a similar sort of situation. You protect yourself in that way too. I'm not sure I'd really thought about that as being a defensive solution against patent trolls. So that's really fascinating.
I think it also speaks to the philosophy of, you know, the innovativeness of Bitcoin itself. You know, we're excuse me. There's several you know, open source licenses that we could you know, we could have released our code under, but we released it under one of the most permissive licenses available, the MIT license. So basically, you could take our code and do pretty much anything you want with it. So you know, some of the other open source licenses like the GPL or whatever, you have to include the source with your product, for example. You know, ours is not like that. So.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of you know, Creative Commons attribution or something like that. It's people can use your code and use it for commercial reasons or adapt it or anything. You call that the MIT license.
Yes, sir.
I'm not as familiar with those terms on open source software, so that's really interesting to me. Well, in any case, you know, some people might be wondering, like. Well, maybe nobody wonders this, but there is a sort of an interesting irony associated with the business infrastructure that's grown up around Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is a kind of a complete system in itself, you know, why do we need a business infrastructure around it? You know, what kind of services should Bitcoin merchants or you know, businesses like you? Why is it necessary that you exist at all? I mean, can't people do on their own pretty much everything that BitPay does for people?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's part of really core area that I work in. Sure, you could craft your own solution and accept Bitcoin payments on your website or your e-commerce store. Absolutely, you know, and a lot of people do. What we offer, you know, we have value-added services such as, you know, we can convert, you know, Bitcoin payments into your local currency. Whereas if you were accepting Bitcoin payments on your website, you'd have to take the coins to a market, for example, to exchange those. So, you know, the benefits, you know, one of the biggest benefits for our merchants, you know, is that they get paid in their fiat currency. So they don't really have to worry about Bitcoin. And so when we approach the issue, it's, you know, we say it's really not about accepting Bitcoin. It's about, you know, do you want an additional revenue stream, which is really, you know, all it is, and that's pretty much a no-brainer for any small business. So. Right,
and people are very confused about this. I talk to merchants all the time, who, you know, they contact me and they're like, okay, I want to know about Bitcoin and how I can start accepting it, and I say call BitPay. They go, well, okay, but here's my problem, and they begin to explain all their problems. And I'm like, well, just give a call BitPay, and they're like, well, I don't understand how to handle the accounting, and you know, the tax liabilities, you know, are just pressing upon me, and you know, and like, how am I going to do this? And I just keep saying, look, there are solutions out there to all your problems. Just give BitPay a call. You know, it's so much easier than people imagine. You know, I mean, I assume that your customer service reps spend most of their time explaining this. Most every day, all day.
Jason?
Yeah, a lot of the accounting stuff can be a little bit confusing. Now, for any merchants listening, it really isn't that difficult, especially if you're using BitPay. If you're converting entirely to dollars, you know, it's basically like you're using us we're a payment service provider. So you, tax-wise, everything is exactly as you do with your current payment service providers, your credit card statements, PayPal, etc. If you're accepting in Bitcoin, it's actually not very difficult. We even have a QuickBooks export feature if you're using QuickBooks, and that makes taxes really, really easy for a lot of our business users, the ones that are really pumping, you know, 100,000 a month kind of thing. And then it's basically any other questions. Obviously, I'm not a liar, but we actually have I think there's a blog post you can search for if you're curious about how to handle the taxes on Bitcoin. It's actually not nearly as complicated as it sounds.
Yeah, that's my whole sense of it. That people get all, and they also merchants imagine they have to, learn a great deal of sort of code and software and figure out. It's a little funny. It's like if somebody wanted to install electricity in their home, in 1910 or something. They felt like they had to understand everything about how it works, which is not really true. I mean, you just call the guys up and put it in your home. That's it. It's sort of the same way with Bitcoin. You don't have to understand everything about it, because Bitcoin sort of scares people. It's kind of complicated. But to be a merchant accepting Bitcoin, so I guess that's the answer to my question. Like, why are you necessary? It's like, you sort of handle that. You're the experts on the thing, and it allows merchants to do what they do best, which is sell stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, we take the complexity out of accepting Bitcoin, for the merchant. So any merchant really, doesn't have to hire an IT person to craft that solution for accepting Bitcoin. We have over 40 integrations, so chances are we support your shopping cart software.
It's a little interesting. I suppose most of the merchants you work with are actually internet companies. They're not really physical world companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, and a big piece of our merchant base, probably 99% of our actual volume is coming from internet payments, and that's really because Bitcoin is made for the internet. Bitcoin is really a completely superior way to pay on the internet, and merchants who are accepting on their website can expect that a significant number of their users likely have Bitcoin. Whereas if you're accepting in a retail environment, we do have a lot of retail merchants, but someone walking around with Bitcoin on their phone who's going to know how to pull it out and pay with Bitcoin, it's going to be a whole lot less common than the internet side.
Somebody said something funny to me a couple of nights ago that really made me laugh, and I wonder if there's any truth to it. That we were at this restaurant for this Atlanta Bitcoin meetup, right? And somebody said to me that like the main incentive that physical world restaurants and bars have for accepting Bitcoin is to host Bitcoin meetups.
Probably true.
Probably not untrue. Yeah, I'd say.
It made me laugh because I thought, hey, wait a minute, that's sort of right. Like I feel like I've been in every famous bar that accepts Bitcoin in the world or something. Mostly at Bitcoin meetups.
Nice.
Yeah, getting a thick enough concentration of people who have Bitcoin in a physical environment is frankly really hard, and will probably continue to be really hard. I mean, it's like bars accepting euros in the U.S. It's just, I mean, there are some of them, but they're all at airports and other places. I mean, that it's a mom and pop shop is likely going to be accepting Bitcoin a lot less for the the utility and a lot more for the free as in freedom.
But Jason, I don't you? Isn't it? I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I thought actually it's is it legal to accept euros and in the U.S. for retail purchases? I'm not sure that it is.
I am not a lawyer. I definitely have seen. I believe it may be because they're at airports. That's what I'm actually thinking about.
Well, probably like duty-free zones and things like that.
Yeah.
Right? International airports and stuff.
I don't even know.
I don't think McDonald's can just decide to accept euros.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I paid with euros at an airport in New York. But
international terminal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I think they may be subject to different rules. I'm not entirely sure about that, but it is rather interesting though that most places in the world you can use dollars, and I'm not sure again about the legal status of that. I mean, even in Canada, you can use American dollars to pay for your tax ride. But that's probably because there's a market for them. A street market for them. But but yeah, I don't think there's really a market for euros in the U.S. I mean, Bitcoin's probably one of the few sort of, and that's actually one of the beauties of Bitcoin. It really is an international currency.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's just one of the benefits. You know, if you're a small business, you could hire contractors in South America, and you can instantly transfer Bitcoin to them as payment. You know, whereas if you were going through a bank doing a wire transfer, not only are you going to pay, you know, $50, $100, whatever the, you know, depending on the amount, you're going to pay a large, you know, percentage in fees. With Bitcoin, it's almost free. You can pay a small transaction fee, very small, and you can actually opt out of that if you want to. But we kind of encourage, you know, a very, very tiny transaction fee to incentivize processing the transaction. But yeah, it's practically instant payments anywhere in the world. So you know, businesses, if they want to transfer capital between, you know, subsidiaries in different countries, you know, this is a really good use case for them as well.
I would have thought that this realm would have caught on much more already, because I mean, you know, apart from the network infrastructure that businesses already use of multinationals, you know, of exchanging currencies here and there, BitPay is Bitcoin is such an obvious solution to this problem. And I wasn't even entirely aware of this. Maybe I've written about this, but I was in Australia, and there's a helicopter rides that you could take for Bitcoin, and so I got up there and I was ready to pay for my helicopter ride. So I began to convert. So I saw, you know, how much it was in Bitcoin, so I converted it in my mind to Australian dollars, and then into American dollars, and then back into Bitcoin, and I stopped myself and I thought, wait a minute. This is crazy. Why am I doing all these crazy conversions? Bitcoin is actually the same, you know, all over the world. And it truly, for the first time, it struck me just how significant it is that Bitcoin is an international currency that you know, sort of exists independent of any national currency.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the you know, the network is what supports it. The decentralized nature of the network, you know, so anyone can download a copy of the, you know, client software and spin up their own Bitcoin node server, and you know, we also have our own products for you know, having Bitcoin related software as well, and Jason knows more about that than I do, but yeah, I mean, it really is an international currency. And going back to something you said earlier, you know, it may not be super common yet, but there is a really enthusiastic community around Bitcoin. So when a new merchant, you know, signs up, you know, the word of mouth spreads really quickly, you know, maybe on the Bitcoin subreddit or something, and you know, and depending on the type of goods they sell, you know, they could really see you know, pretty nice little chunk of increase in sales. You know.
I would think so. I would think so in almost any city. I remember, which you don't, but I do remember when most places didn't have Wi-Fi, and so if you were the first coffee shop in town that had Wi-Fi, you know, suddenly you had, you know, a whole clientele that was arriving with their laptops ready to use you and you know, buy your stuff. So it was the first movers in the space had a great advantage, and I think that's probably true. Like even now, and with Bitcoin in most cities.
Yes, sir. And I think that any business on the back end looking to reduce costs for banking and you know, payroll, we have a you know, we offer a payroll solution through a couple of third parties, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a way for small businesses and large businesses to reduce costs as well. So,
so I'm very curious. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was curious. Did you get to make it down to the Bitcoin Bowl? Something we're going way back.
No, no. But Bitcoin Bowl wasn't long ago. It was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was December. It was right around Christmas.
Oh yeah.
The holidays.
No, I didn't make it to the Bitcoin Bowl. I mean, I should have, but you know, I've been so many Bitcoin events, and yeah, so that didn't work out for me.
Well, and we were just talking about the retail situation. Well, it was really cool. I did feel a little bit like I was in the future, going around downtown St. Pete, because you know, I said it's very uncommon to come across a place that accepts Bitcoin. But if you walk down that street, I mean, you look left and right, and it's literally every window on the street has a little "We accept Bitcoin" sticker, and the Bitcoin logo. It's just like Bitcoin logos everywhere. They're probably more common than the credit card stickers, because I guess people were assuming that they accept credit cards or something. But yeah, that was really, really cool. And you know, we talk about Bitcoin being hard and stuff, but actually, I believe a lot of those merchants got a lot of use. It's kind of funny. I actually had my family was in town for the Bitcoin Ball. They decided to join along, and got my grandparents set up, and they went through and bought things at several places. Probably went on a shopping spree at several places. And
that's so funny.
Yeah, it was really fun seeing how confused some of the store owners were when my 86-year-old grandmother comes up and asks if she can use Bitcoin, and she's got that wallet. She knows how to use that better than anybody else. So, yeah.
Is it just me? I mean, it seems like I was going to ask questions about payment processing time. It seems like the speed is faster now than it was, say, 2 years ago. Is that something I'm imagining? It seems to me usually in most cases it takes just a few seconds for Bitcoin to transmit, and of course longer for confirmations to come in, right? But just a few seconds. Is that your experience?
I think you mean when you're like paying a BitPay invoice?
No, when you're paying in Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah. You may notice, I guess, with the BitPay invoices in the past year or so, we've significantly improved how quickly BitPay invoices respond basically to a new payment detected on the network. That includes some our boundary nodes detect it probably a little bit earlier than they did before, and we're able to confirm that it will be occupying the mempool very quickly. So, and especially with payment protocol, that may actually be another perceived improvement too. Payment protocol, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but if you pay with a payment protocol enabled merchant, your wallet can actually, first it's much more secure, because your wallet can actually cryptographically verify that you're paying to the correct address, which solves a whole area of previous problems probably that happened 2011, 2012.
That's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and that's something we implemented. In fact, Stephen Pear, our CEO, wrote a BIP that's kind of included in the payment protocol, BIP 73, and then obviously BitPay was the first to implement it. So a lot of the payment protocol stuff has probably really improved user experience in the Bitcoin, in using Bitcoin, especially if you're paying a BitPay invoice. And now several other payment processors have also started working with payment protocol. So number of wallets as well.
So that way you don't have to wait for the confirmations to come in, because you've got a first round of verification to take place.
That's kind of a separate thing. There's actually some really cool. So anybody who's Googling things that we're saying, Google Impulse and Google Lightning Network. Those are two different things that are kind of what Jeffrey is talking about there. Payment protocol itself is more for on the user side. The user is able to confirm that they're not getting, that their computer isn't compromised, or that they're not getting tricked into sending Bitcoin to an attacker's address, because they're able to verify that they've got the right address, which is it solves a huge issue that was early on, 2011, 2012. People with compromised computers being convinced that they've paid to an address, sometimes to BitPay, a lot of times to other websites and things, and then lots of confusion until someone figures out that they're using an infected version of Windows. So payment protocol just throws a lot of those issues right out the window.
That's cool.
Yeah. It also improves the speed because it goes straight to the server. The user's wallet sends the payments and notification of the payment straight to the merchant, rather than just kind of broadcasting it to the network and waiting for it to get back around. It goes straight through. So I think I missed saying that before, but a lot of users, if you've used Bitcoin, in 2012 and you try again today, you may notice that it's almost instant, whereas in the past it seemed like it took 30 seconds. It was because if you sent from your phone and you're in Germany and our closest boundary node is in London, it's going to take 3 or 4 seconds before all of the transaction propagates through the network, gets detected by us, and gets sent into to process.
That's really interesting. I was playing around with something the other day. What's the internet tipping? I don't know if you work with these guys, but quick, I don't know what's it called? The tipping service on Twitter. What is it?
Changed it.
ChangeTip. Yeah, and I was moving some stuff from my ChangeTip wallet over to my I don't know what, whatever other kind of wallet, and it took a surprising amount of time, actually, you know. And I realized that a lot of the timing issues are contingent upon the software processors like ChangeTip itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of it depends on your risk settings as well, and in a lot of the plugins and merchant accounts, settings for your merchant account, your BitPay merchant account, for example, you can determine if the level of risk that you're willing to accept for the sale of your goods or the transfer of services or whatever. We have the 3 transaction speeds. So for digital downloads or a website that's selling games or something, the fast transaction speed setting doesn't wait for a full 6-block confirmation by the network. We'll go ahead and say that that's been paid and confirmed after 1 block. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but I believe that's the correct way, right?
Yeah, and I think, and also one thing, going back to your point, Jeffrey, a lot of users, and this Rich may have some horror stories here, but a lot of users will use a centralized Bitcoin bank or brokerage that calls itself a wallet and expect that their payments will happen immediately, like a Bitcoin wallet, is supposed to work. But a lot of these, it's usually exchanges. People will leave their Bitcoin on an exchange because they're just holding it there, and then they'll try to make payments, send Bitcoin to people from their exchange accounts. And little do they know that some of these exchanges haven't really gotten with the times, so to speak, and they'll actually batch process all of their transactions every 45 minutes to an hour. So you might send from Bitcoin company X, send it from the website, and we've had lots of people that contact BitPay support all the time, scared that their Bitcoin is gone because it's not in their account. And it's definitely not been sent to the invoice properly.
And 45 minutes have gone by.
Yeah, we get at least I don't know what it is these days. I used to handle some of the support tickets for BitPay kind of early on, and it was probably we had several a day, spending from wallets that didn't work like Bitcoin wallets. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, and the problem is that people don't know, when they have an experience with Bitcoin. I'm thinking, of course, thinking back about Gawk's case, they don't know how to distinguish, particular sort of merchant service from the technology itself.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that goes wrong with any kind of provider is inevitably blamed on Satoshi.
Yeah, absolutely. It's his fault.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I hear all the time, and it's fairly interesting, I'm not entirely sure I understand it, but people say about BitPay that this is an unusually principled company, that somehow BitPay has been able to maintain the sort of purity of vision and the integrity of the original the original protocol as Satoshi imagined it, in a way in which others have not. So I'm not entirely sure I understand what people mean when they say that, but I've heard it enough times that it makes me, curious to ask the question and see if it rings true for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some technological decisions we could have made that could have made things easier for us, engineering-wise, but to keep with the spirit of the decentralized nature of Bitcoin and the network, the technology. We don't store private keys on our server, for example. We're not a wallet service. We're not an exchange. We're strictly
processor,
and helping to support and develop other new technologies that may be helpful coming up. So
yeah, and further on that, I guess, and I actually shy away a little bit from talking about too much about being going with the spirit of Bitcoin, because it's actually it just makes good business sense to build a Bitcoin business in a way that's very security hardened, I guess is what we would say. There are a lot of Bitcoin businesses that are very much at risk of being hacked, and if they are, there's in the case of Mt. Gox, $400 million gone, and it's kind of funny. I guess there are very few. In fact, I don't think that there are any companies in Bitcoin older than 3 years. Maybe I'm out of date now. There are no companies really other than BitPay that are older than 3 years old.
That's amazing, isn't it?
They just drop like flies.
Yeah.
They all come in trying to build centralized services. They host the wallet. They do everything right. But one day, one employee goes rogue or something bad happens, and all of a sudden, all the money is gone. The investors are asking what's happening. All of the users' money is gone. It's just a lot of what we've done at BitPay is specifically because you can't run a Bitcoin company the way you run a bank. Banks, you can have guys with guns standing in front of vaults. With Bitcoin, if you mess up once, all of the money is gone.
Yeah, I was going to say something to that, Jason. I mean, a lot of these companies that have made these type of mistakes, they've tried to fit the paradigm of the classic institutionalized banking. They've tried to fit that to Bitcoin itself in order to try to make it more palatable or maybe more easy to use. But I mean, obviously it's a different paradigm. So
yeah. I don't know how anybody could possibly keep this straight. I mean, it seems like every few days I'm sent a new white paper from a startup, and I just I never have any clue. I mean, it's just and it's kind of a scary realm, because as with any emerging exciting technology, the number of scams are just legion out there, and it's hard to distinguish the real thing from the fake thing, really.
Yeah, you wanna?
Yeah, maybe so.
I've stopped being able to read so many white papers. I guess I managed to get through maybe one a week or so. But yeah, after the 20th or 30th, it was just.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I don't know if I'm not asking you to endorse this site, but I once bumped into a hilarious website called badbitcoin.org, I think is what it is. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Yeah, and it's just like awesome. How many businesses out there are set up with all sorts of elaborate promises about what they're going to do for you, but basically they want your Bitcoin. I mean, that's in the end they want you. They want your Bitcoins. I mean, that's.
Have you seen Bob Chain? What is Bob Chain?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I saw that the other day.
Love that website. Somebody should post that in chat.
Yeah. We have a centralized solution where you can trust Bob. Yeah, this is right.
I love that. Yeah, I think that went around BitPay. It's been around BitPay a couple times.
Oh wait.
Black, and it migrates around the office maybe.
That's very funny. Did you happen to see that hilarious ClickHole article the other day called "Watch This Guy Mumble an Explanation of Bitcoin to You"? Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer currency, and it goes on. It's really very. I probably watched it 12 times.
Yeah.
Very funny. No, but you touched on, Zacy, something interesting that maybe I hadn't entirely figured this, zeroed in on this, but you've never built a wallet. BitPay does not have a wallet. You don't. This is not an exchange as such. It's just purely, and that may account for why you've been able to specialize your services and sort of master the realm, and that really makes you different from a lot of other people in the space.
Yeah, and that's something that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to come work at BitPay. I think Tony and Steven early on made some really good decisions on basically focusing. when a lot of other Bitcoin companies really weren't able to focus. They spent their time being an exchange, a payment service provider, and a wallet, and 14 other things. BitPay focusing on payment processing really helped us, I guess, stand out of the crowd a bit. Helped us land some larger clients and be able to get a development team that can now be working on a lot of other really cool Bitcoin stuff. And you mentioned for a wallet, we have actually in running BitPay, we found the need for to secure BitPay's funds. So about a year ago, actually, our development team in Argentina actually started working on a wallet that we call Copay, which is a multi-signature wallet. It's you can have 3 out of 5 people at your business have to approve a transaction before it sends, basically. So we use multi-signature addresses, Bitcoin multi-signature addresses to secure funds, which is something that we built specifically for our treasury management, so that basically we don't have really any single points of failure these days. Between our C-level people, we're able to manage our Bitcoin treasury very, very securely using a combination of
you did this before. This is before multi-sig became a kind of standard in most wallets.
Yeah, actually, exactly. We actually the team that put together Copay actually wrote BIP43. If you're curious, or anybody in the comments, you might want to link to that. BIP43 is the structure for a multi-signature hierarchical deterministic wallet.
Yeah.
Which is fancy terminology for if you've gotten a wallet that gives you a backup phrase, that you just have to have one phrase, and then you've got a backup of all of your future Bitcoin that you put in the wallet. That's what we did, except we did it for multisig, which is exactly what we need for securing BitPay's Bitcoin. And it's actually, it's been, for about a year that's been in development. It's been in beta, and I know that they're very close to tagging version 1. So yeah, anybody in the comments, you might want to check out copay.io.
And anyone can, the code for Copay is open source. So any business that wants this type of technology to secure their funds, they could use the same thing. So.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions. I mean, one I think concerns this. I don't know if you can see my cufflink. Can you see that? This Doge.
Yeah, go ahead. Nice.
You.
They're paying you.
What?
How much are they paying you?
Right, a lot.
Dogecoin for bribes?
Yeah, Dogecoin. Yeah, right. Well, what does BitPay do about various altcoins? Have you played around with those? I mean, I don't know if it's true that altcoins are actually very viable for payments, are they?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we focus our attention on Bitcoin. We believe that that's the leading technology. So, there are a lot of compelling altcoins out there that have some really good ideas, but we want to focus our attention on this one technology and really do that really, really well. And I think that the market's responded. We have the the largest market share for Bitcoin payment processing. So we don't really want to dilute that focus.
Well, was there ever a time when you had considered Litecoin, for example?
No, I don't believe so. Jason, have we?
Well, I mean, way back early, right when I got to BitPay, I know that we've obviously when different altcoins that are very interesting and have other sorts of technology things that are very interesting come out. Obviously, we take a look at a lot of that stuff. We're all of us are on the Bitcoin subreddit and looking around. Anything that gets posted on GitHub and has anything to do with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, someone has probably seen it at BitPay. And obviously we're talking about that kind of stuff. Business-wise, I think Rich's answer is hits the nail on the head. We are trying to focus exclusively on the largest market share cryptocurrency,
sure.
And really because it's largest, it also has the most secure network.
Sure.
is really the reason that we choose to.
Well, and the other thing is that anybody who's playing around with altcoins, I think they're delightful and fun, because I like to fantasize a world of, you know, an infinite number of currencies, you know, that capture every subculture imaginable. I mean, I would be all in favor of, you know, like Presbyterian coin. I mean, just like, it doesn't matter to me. But in any case, these things are all perfectly liquid with each other. So if Bitcoin is the gold standard, you know, it's just a matter of quick operations to move any altcoin into Bitcoin and then into payment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are exchanges, and there are, you know, organizations that will do that for you. We just try to focus on Bitcoin, but, you know, we do watch the subreddits and the markets, and we are aware of the various altcoins out there, and, you know, some of them are pretty, you know, interesting, some are funny, and you know, but yeah, we just try to focus on Bitcoin.
Well, I love them. I love to watch the market capitalization, and some of them are implausibly huge, you know. One of my favorite sites is bravenewcoin.com. I guess it's a development out of Australia, and I love to watch these markets. I think they're just delightful and wonderful. It's exciting. You know, the Bitcoin community is divided. Some people just, you know, like despise all the altcoins as if they're some sort of interlopers, you know. I just think it's fun.
No, I think any voice in the conversation is helpful. You know, I mean, if they can point us to something that we're not seeing, or maybe a good idea. I mean, we welcome all those ideas and welcome the conversation. Absolutely.
Oh, and by the way, in defense of Doge, you know, I mean, everybody predicted that, you know, the death of Doge, you know, like 2 years ago or something, but it is actually sustaining itself and done very, very well. So, just to throw in a little, you know, pitch for my.
Yeah, I don't understand.
You don't understand? You don't understand?
I don't get the Dogecoin. Okay. All right.
The other thing is it's incredibly easy to mine. I think people like to be miners. You know, the days of Bitcoin mining, you know, we're just sort of over. And there's something really wonderful about the idea of you can turn on your computer and make money. I mean, like, produce money. You know, that's wonderful. Everybody wants to do that. There's something fascinating about that, which you can do with Dogecoin even now. Okay, so I've got another question, and it has to do with this is, what does BitPay look for in engineering candidates? I mean, this is the job application, and by the way, I mean, I truly don't know anybody, like almost any tech-minded, you know, person under the age of 30 wants to work at BitPay. So I hope you understand just how unbelievably, unbearably lucky you guys are, and you must get 1,000 job applications a day. But do you want to comment on what BitPay looks for in its engineers?
Rich, you want to do that?
Yeah, sure. You know, I mean, obviously, yeah, you need a skill. You know, depending on the position you're looking for. You know, if it's UX design, you know, Jason can speak to that. You know, if it's, you know, e-commerce experience, if it's, you know, whatever language. Yeah, a lot of us at BitPay are polyglots. You know, we work in more than one programming language, and you know, a lot of programmers will pigeonhole themselves in one particular programming language, but you know, we really have a pretty diverse staff and diverse skill set. So, you know, a breadth of technology experience. You know, it helps if you have experience in the payment industry, but since we are, you know, a payment processor, and also, you know, really good attitude. You know, I mean, you can teach someone how to program. You know, you can teach a lot of skill, but you really can't teach attitude. You know, so that's, for me, you know, my team. That's what I look for a lot. You know, when I'm interviewing. So
even in the Bitcoin space, you're intolerant of jerks.
Yeah, jerks. No, gotta go.
That's generally good advice for any job, you know. Like, be a good colleague, be a nice guy, you know.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, our rooms, where each team is in its own little glass room at BitPay, and you know, we're in very close quarters, so you know, the caustic personalities aren't well tolerated. So.
Yeah, but I can imagine people could be. But that's true in any kind of position. So, well, there's another question that I've got to ask just because it's here. Any recommendations for newcomers looking to work in the Bitcoin space? And I mean, it's interesting that, you know, I think there are personality sort of differences here. Some people would never want to work in the Bitcoin space because they consider it too eccentric, maybe too risky, sort of vaguely dangerous and that sort of thing. But there are people who are drawn to it, right? Am I right about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you look at a lot of the Bitcoin space, you'd expect it's going to be basically high-risk people. But yeah, it's not really even seen as the most stable career choice. But it is definitely rewarding. You won't get bored here.
Absolutely. This is and I keep, I tell newcomers and new hires, this really is, my 20 years of development. This is really the most exciting company I've ever worked for, and I'm completely honest when I say that. The technology, the people we work with are brilliant people. We're on the cutting edge of this, new commerce paradigm, and it's just so exciting working for this company.
How does it that BitPay was continued to thrive over the last 18 months? Was 18? Since when have we seen the exchange rate sort of go into its inflationary mode? This would have been about 15 months or 16 months, something like that.
About January is when it started.
Yeah. So, but BitPay's continued to grow, right? So, I mean, undoubtedly the business model adapted.
We actually took a round of funding, during the downtrend. And that was, yeah, I can speak to that, Rich, if you want. A lot of, so one of the other things that I really respect Stephen and Tony's decisions early on is BitPay was probably one of the only companies in the Bitcoin space that was profitable since its inception for a long time. So we really don't burn cash very quickly. So we do take venture capital investment now. Tony and Stephen, they bootstrapped it for 2 years before they hired their first employee in 2013. And since then, we've grown to now 70 over the past couple of years. I mean, even adding on employees, we really don't burn through cash very quickly. And for it, our investors are getting quite a lot of bang for their buck.
Interesting.
And being able for them to be so close to the Bitcoin space, I feel like some of our investors are almost wearing BitPay as a lapel pin, and less as an investment. But we really, I'd say, money-wise, I don't think that there's lots of issues there.
Rich, did you want to comment on that?
Oh, I mean, like any company, we have a financial team that watches, our dollars and how we spend our money, and hopefully makes wise decisions with purchases. And sometimes we have to tighten our belt, and sometimes we get the segues, we get to ride around. Just kidding, we don't have segues. It's not a startup like that. Sometimes it feels like it, but we don't have segues. So
we have scooters.
Yeah.
At the Bitcoin Miami, November or December 2013, I saw quite a number of Maseratis actually.
Did you see the BitPay one?
Well, I didn't want to identify it as the BitPay Maserati. Yeah.
Those were personally funded, so I don't think that was coming.
I think some of our investors had some fun with that. and we had, I know Tony and Stephen have license plates, and several of the others have license plates that have to do with Bitcoin. So they went crazy, putting that stuff on all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. You guys watch price trends all the time. There's been nothing to watch now for it's boring, right? You probably go for weeks without really even looking at the price. But what do you think about? Well, I guess it's sort of a theory that I accept. I wonder how widely accepted it is that actually one of the reasons for the softening of the exchange rate over the last 15 months is actually due to companies like BitPay. That the sell orders are increasing. Like as Bitcoin adoption is growing, you just have this constant sort of one-way path. Out of Bitcoin into national currencies, and that's sort of suppressing the exchange rate.
If I can speak to that actually, and I know that's a common a discussion on the Bitcoin subreddit. Funny enough, I guess from inside, I look at it, and I don't recall the last time I heard that we sold on an exchange. So when people say BitPay is dumping on exchanges, not that that would be a bad thing, but I don't think our investors have let us sell a single Bitcoin to the public in quite some time. There are lots of investors and lots of institutional investors that want to buy Bitcoin from a reputable entity, and do it at a reasonable cost, and that's something that BitPay is able to do. So a lot of the talk about BitPay dumping is kind of funny because if anything, if it goes to BitPay, it's going straight into an address where it's probably not going to move for probably a decade.
It never even occurred to me to ask the question, to whom does BitPay sell? It never occurred to me. So thank you for answering that question.
I think it is public knowledge kind of, but I mean, obviously our investors are not just investing in BitPay. They want to get exposure to Bitcoin, the currency. So they're investing in BitPay because they can get basically BitPay being an exponential on an exponential. That buying BitPay is like buying exponential on Bitcoin, but when they can't get more shares of BitPay, they turn around and buy Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. So are you rejecting the theory that Bitcoin adoption is driving the exchange rate in the direction over downwards?
I think it's more of just a settling of the price. We had some volatility, and that's also a criticism. The volatility of the price, but I think it's just the natural settling of the market. I don't really believe that it's any sort of downward pressure that we're applying to the market at all. So
yeah. That's really interesting. I've not really had a viable theory, and you may be right that maybe just because it's a new technology, there is a sort of a tendency towards these booms and busts. But there's nothing that BitPay is doing that requires the company to speculate on the future exchange values of Bitcoin and such, right? That's not, your business model doesn't depend on being good predictors of the price.
No, we don't predict the price or try to anticipate the price. We have a sales model. We have subscription-based services for larger shops, and for our small mom and pop shops or anyone that wants to try it out. Our basic account level is free, but we do have subscription services for larger companies.
Well, that's an interesting thing that you have a basic account that's free, and that happened when?
When did that happen, Jason?
I believe it was November of 2013, because it was right around. I think it was right around Money 2020, and was when we announced that, if I recall. I mean, in years. But yeah, and one of the other things that I did want to say, for anyone listening who's not really familiar with the Bitcoin space, a lot of the most natural place to look at for why the price would ever go down is right now Bitcoin. I forget the exact percentage. I guess it's close to 10%. Has close to a 10% inflation rate right now. Bitcoin is a very quickly inflating currency.
Yeah.
It will slow down more in 2016, again in 2020. But right now there are 25 Bitcoin produced every 10 minutes. That means every day 3,600 Bitcoin are produced. That means every day when the price stays stable, that means $1 million of Bitcoin has been bought. So if $1 million aren't bought every day, the price inches down. And that price, the price that has to get bought in order to absorb that inflationary pressure, that grows with the Bitcoin price. So if you're looking for a culprit for the fall of Bitcoin, I would say probably for the decline in price, I'd say it's probably the $1 million in inflation that we get every day. And without a speculative mania around it, then it's really just inching up with very slow investment growth.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me about that, and I appreciate this about Bitcoin, is that I don't know anybody in say 2013 who would have expected that in April of, or in May of June now, I guess, of 2015, the price would be what it is right now. I think most everybody that I knew expected it to be in the many thousands by now.
Yeah, I mean that was the kind of the discussion we were having internally as well. So it's funny when people say that we're driving down the price. So we want the price to go up. I mean, we want people to use Bitcoin. So.
Which is actually counterintuitive. You'd think that if the price of Bitcoin in terms of dollars went up, that people would naturally hoard Bitcoin because you anticipate higher, it's because the value of your property is growing. At least I think there's an sort of ceteris paribus economic theory that would predict that, that deflation causes hoarding. But from everything I understand about your business, the opposite is true. The higher the exchange rate between Bitcoin and dollars, the more likely people are to spend them.
Yeah, absolutely. We really value Bitcoin technology as a currency. We want people to use Bitcoin to pay for things. So, we tend to not look at it, in the terms of investing. We try to look at it in terms of, a currency that you can use to be, to buy things and to be, consumers. So.
Right. Well, let me make sure I've gone through all these things. Are you bullish or bearish on the Bitcoin price at the minute? Of course. I mean, do you want to take a guess? I don't know if these terms bull and bear actually apply. By the way.
Yeah, I don't know. Unicornish is that a term? I don't know. We can't speculate on that. Can't say. No comment. No comment.
I'm a purple bull in the Bitcoin space. Yeah, I'll get those coins at any price I can. All of it's cheaper than it will be in my my estimation. So mark me on the bullish side.
Okay. And you're on an elevator and somebody says, "You work for BitPay? Why? I run a business. Why should I accept Bitcoin?" And you're approaching the floor where the guy's about to leave. What do you say?
I mean, it's an easy question. This is something that we get on the e-commerce side all the time. It's not necessarily the question is not whether or not you want to accept Bitcoin. The question is whether or not you want an additional revenue stream for your business. Because on the back end we convert the Bitcoin to fiat for the merchant. So as far as the merchant's concerned, they're just getting more dollars or more euros or more real for their sales. So.
So you just open up a new market, a new new revenue stream. Yeah, that's. So you don't need to go into the whole thing about it's cheaper the processing.
Well, I mean, those are good, selling points as well. But if they're leaving the elevator, I'll probably tell them that.
Yeah, but and you wouldn't want me to be there because I'd say, well, doing so, helps contribute to the historical trajectory towards, the building of a stateless society. So that I'm not sure I'll be very effective. Don't ever hire me as your marketing guy. Okay, so I'm told that tomorrow we have from 1 to 3 a Bitcoin headline show. That's Eastern time, 1 to 3, hosted by you, me, and BTC team. I think I've attended that before. It's a lot of fun. So, and we're all in Atlanta. We should hang out more often. We were there together the other night at the Atlanta Bitcoin meetup, and that was a lot of fun, right? Did you think I did an okay job at sort of explaining? I was sort of out on a limb, didn't you think?
Yeah, you did very well. I appreciate the. I know you've talked about how Bitcoin connects the physical world and the digital world better than anything has before. I think I heard exclusively from you, probably in 2013 at the Bitcoin conference. But that's something I like to hear all the time.
Well, but I'm still working on it, right? I mean, it's still just sort of magical and mysterious and amazing to me. So. I feel maybe I am repeating myself, but I believe anyway my knowledge is always improving. But I'm never quite sure about that. But thank you both for being with me and for being on Liberty.me and for all that BitPay is doing for the world.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Good night, y'all.
Have a good one. A thorough mix. We've got James, who I know had set up a lot of this stuff, and marketing and small marketing team, pretty extensive sales team now that's doing a lot of the enterprise sales, maybe 10 or 15, and then development teams here in the Atlanta headquarters.
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly like a regular like any other regular business, we've got our accounting department and our CFO and compliance team, legal, and but we do have a lot of engineers. That is true, though.
I think when I first visited the offices of BitPay, it was, oh wow, I think it might have been in about, I think it was about April 2013. And I think there can't have been more than maybe 15 or 20 employees there. Am I right about that?
Yeah. I think maybe for the Bitcoin conference, was it around the time when you did the Bitcoin conference here?
No, this was would have been 6 months before that, because I came to an Atlanta Bitcoin meetup that you had sponsored, and I think it was in the same building. It was where the meetup took place.
Atlanta Tech Village.
Yeah, Atlanta Tech Village. So there's a big conference room there that could hold, I think, 400 or 500 people.
Yeah.
And so I kind of snuck out of that, and I kind of snuck out of that meeting and walked across the hall, and I saw the BitPay sign, and it was kind of exciting. And somebody was in there, and they let me in and let me sort of tour around the offices, and it was really captivating. I mean, truly romantic, actually, I must say. It was really great.
You see the big lit up sign on the left when you walked in?
Yeah, I don't remember what did it say?
Oh, it was just the BitPay sign. It was our old logo.
Okay.
But when we switched logos, the custody of that sign was hotly debated.
Oh, is that right?
Tony Galippi, our chairman of the board, took it home. I think it's at his apartment now. But cool sign lit up in the back. It's a little neon lit up.
A little neon thing, yeah.
Cool, yeah. And that thing went all night, so you could see it from the windows outside the office. We're on the 5th floor there, so you could, if you were down on the street and you looked in just the right way, you'd be able to see the BitPay logo.
Yeah. Well,
now it's on the building.
Well, it's actually remarkable to think of. So I think when I went to that Bitcoin meetup, the exchange rate was, I'm just gonna say maybe it was $30 or $40, something like that.
That's about right.
Yeah. So BitPay sort of grew up around the sort of the boom of Bitcoin, but you could also say I think that BitPay actually sort of led it in a way. I mean, one of you want to tell me sort of a little bit of the history of the company, because it was very early on. Tony and your current CEO, and I forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of got together and put together the company long before anybody else had really much heard about Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and they were lucky enough to hire one of the Bitcoin core engineers early on as well, and Jeff.
Are you both from the South, or what about your where are you both of you from?
Yeah. Rich?
Go ahead. Yeah. I'm from the South. Yeah, I've lived all over, but from the South.
What was you? So you were in commercial banking and that sort of thing before, or what?
E-commerce.
Okay. Startup or big corporate stuff?
Both, really. I had my own consulting business for about 6-7 years. In that space, it's mostly small e-commerce type jobs. So.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jason?
Actually, pretty similar. I'm from southwestern Virginia. I was at the University of Virginia until very recently, until I came down to BitPay. I've been doing software for about 10 years now, actually.
Okay, so you worked at the University of Virginia?
No, I was a student for a year, and then I came straight down here, working on first BitPay's front end development, and now leading the design team.
I think most people, when they imagine working at a place like BitPay, they imagine, I don't know, like hundreds of programmers or something like that. But not everybody at BitPay is a programmer, or much less like a hacker, right? I mean, there's a huge allocation of tasks, right?
Yeah, we have. I believe we have around 40 engineers or kind of development people, and then we have now about 25 to 30 others. So we have, I think we have almost 70 in total. But yeah, we got.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jeffrey Tucker with Liberty.me, and we've got a wonderful show tonight, very special. We've got our BitPay friends. We're going to talk about how to build a career in Bitcoin, which is going to involve a sort of inside look at BitPay and what goes on there and what it's like to actually work in a real-life Bitcoin business. Everybody I know wants to work at BitPay. So we have with us Jason Dreyzehner and also Rich Morgan. And I think I'll let you just introduce yourselves, just each of you one at a time. And Jason, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jason Dreyzehner. I lead the design team here at BitPay. I've been doing software engineering for a long time, and in recent years I've been doing a lot more design. I joined BitPay June 13th, 2013, so I've been here for almost 2 years. Things have been quite exciting since then. I saw the first boom, and now about a year of the recent market trend. So that's been very exciting. Rich, you wanna?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I joined a few months after Jason in January of 2014, so I've been here a year and a half now. Been a software engineer for about 20 years. I lead the e-commerce and integrations team here at BitPay. So my background is primarily in more traditional forms of payment. So obviously I knew about Bitcoin. So when I had the opportunity to work for BitPay, I just jumped at the chance. I had to have the interview, and luckily got the job. So that's my background. Garzik was an employee full time, and that was really cool. When we were at a little startup phase there in that Day TV building. Like Jeff sat like right behind me and stuff, and I was, I mean, things were just so cool. The field a small company back then was really neat, and now we're we moved next door into this bigger building, and I guess every business grows, and if it's successful, and yeah, I think that the strategic decisions that Tony and Steven made by open sourcing all of our software pretty much, except for, there's a few core things they haven't open source, but giving our tools back to the community and then sponsoring the development of Bitcoin itself by hiring the core developer, that was a really smart move on their part. But they're really smart guys too, though. So.
Well, it is interesting to the decision to open source everything, and what that means is that everything, almost all of the software that you make available, that you use, is available on GitHub. And so you invite, the world Bitcoin community to examine the code and to even use it, right? I mean, that's kind of that's a daring sort of move, isn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, we want everyone to use our code because we believe in our code and we use it. And we also believe that we don't know everything, and there are bugs in code, and the more eyes we can have on it, the more bug-free the code will be. So it's a group effort. We're all in this community, and so we all kind of depend on each other in that regard.
Yeah. And especially